So last night I got home from my day job. I'm checking my email and I got one from Netflix. Hey, here's a link to a digital screener. You get to watch this movie early. I was like, okay, let's do that right now. Yeah, I was over the moon because I've been looking forward to this one. Wendell and Wild. So Wendell and Wild is a new stop-motion animated movie on Netflix. It's directed by Henry Selick, the director of The Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline, which are two of my favorite movies of all time. In fact, Coraline was the last movie he directed, and that was like 13 years ago. But needless to say, I was like, alright, Henry Selick's doing another spooky stop-motion movie? Yeah, okay, let's do it. So in this movie we have Kat, voiced by Lyric Ross. She's really standoffish because her parents died, so she's learned to fight for herself. And she ends up becoming a Hell Maiden. She summons two demons from the underworld, Wendell and Wild, voiced obviously by Key and Peele. I'll get to that in a minute. So Kat and these two demons, they get wrapped up in a horror comedy adventure. That's your basic summation, or at least that's what you got from the trailers. There is more going on, but here we go. And I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I'm a huge fan of the subgenre of spooky stop-motion movies. Like I said, Nightmare, Coraline, but also Corpse Bride, Paranorman. There's just something about these movies that is so charming to me. The style of the animation, the art direction, the way things move, the camera work, the lighting. It's always just a little bit off, distorted. The music is creepy. Really, these are horror movies for kids. That's what they are. They're kids' movies that might just scare little kids a little bit. That's awesome. So this movie being a new addition to that category, it kind of automatically has a leg up in my book. That is, if the story is great as well. I do like the characters in this movie. Kat, like I said, she has her walls up, she has a chip on her shoulder. But you do get where she's coming from. You're like, alright, give her a break. She's a 13-year-old orphan, for God's sakes. You do end up sympathizing with her, and she ends up being a good main character for this movie. Of course, the scene stealers, you already know, are the title characters, Wendell and Wild, Key and Peele. Obviously voiced by them, if you can't tell, because they look like them. Which I actually like. They kind of look like caricature, cartoon, ghoulish versions of Key and Peele. I actually really like that for some reason. If you don't know me by now, I'm actually usually not a fan of Key and Peele. Just in Comedy Central or even in Toy Story 4, I was like, their humor's a little... I don't know what it is. It just never clicked with me. But in this movie, they're two demon brothers. They have a scheme, they're planning something behind Kat's back. And they have good intentions, but they're just going about it kind of the wrong way because they're demons. I found that pretty entertaining to watch, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, for the first time ever, I gotta say, I really like Key and Peele in something. They kept me entertained, they were funny, I laughed at a few things they said, and they were clever, so props to Key and Peele in this movie. I can't believe I just said that. What can I say? Keegan-Michael Key has impressed me in his own projects, Jordan Peele has certainly impressed me in his own projects. Bring them together? They were bound to impress me at some point. So good on them, they finally did it. Now let's talk about the animation before I lose my sanity. The cool thing is, seeing the trailers for this movie, I was like, yeah, this is distinctly Henry Selick because the animation reminds me a lot of the animation in Coraline. It has the same kind of motion, frame rate, weird designs. Originally, I thought that might have been a Leica thing because Coraline is a Leica movie. And since then, Leica's movies have gotten smoother in their animation. With Paranorman, The Box Trolls, Kubo and the Two Strings, Missing Link. Those movies have noticeably smoother animation than Coraline. But seeing the trailers for Wendell and Wild, the animation does take it back to Coraline's more rough animation style, which I love. I was like, whoa, okay, so it's not a Leica thing, it's a Henry Selick thing, really. Henry Selick just happens to like that lower frame rate. That's awesome. That's really what sold me on this movie, honestly. Watching the trailers, I was like, that looks like Coraline. I'm in. And yeah, that's how the animation is in this movie. The frame rate is a little lower at times, not all the time. The character designs of everyone is really distorted and wacky. And there is some imagery in this movie that will scare the living hell out of some little kids. And that's always a plus. And actually, at a point, during some of the dialogue scenes, I was like, whoa, that was a little vulgar. Is this movie rated PG-13? So I looked it up and yeah, this is PG-13. I didn't know that. Did you know that? There are some swear words and grim topics in this film, so parents be aware of that. Props to you, Henry Selick and Jordan Peele, who also co-wrote the screenplay for this. Yeah, now you're in. I will say the story in this movie is pretty cool for the most part. I mean, I like seeing Kat work it out with the demons and what they're gonna do. Although a couple of gripes I have do start coming in at this point. because this movie has some really on-the-nose social commentary in it, which I wasn't expecting since the trailers didn't say anything about it. So when it came up in a really preachy way, I was like, oh, alright, we're doing this? This movie touches on gentrification, big corporate companies and peoples taking over a small town, and they're like, yes, we're all about the money. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Alright, I mean, again, I wasn't expecting this. I'm not above a movie having social commentary at all. In fact, I welcome it if it's woven into the story in a smooth way. In this movie, it was fine until it started getting really in your face. At a point, I was like, alright, I get it. You don't need to beat it over my head. And there are some scenes in this movie where I was like, alright, that didn't make sense, or that was poorly written. Trying to be vague here. I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to spoil it, so I'm just going to ding the dialogue in a couple of scenes. I'll just say one scene involving a vote and some zombies come in. That scene, I was like, okay, really? That's like the low point of this movie for me. But really, that's it. Everything else about this movie I thought was awesome. And yes, that does include the music. This movie is scored by Bruno Coulet, who wrote the score for Coraline, one of my favorite scores of all time. And there were definitely some points in this movie where I was like, yep, that music sounds like Coraline's score a little bit. It's got those high dissonant keys. It's got the choir singing. I was like, yeah, that's taking me back. Good job, Coulet. I don't know if I'm going to end up loving the score as much as I love Coraline's score, but that might just be because I've only heard it the one time so far. So who knows? And really, that goes for this whole movie as well. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I love the animation. The characters are really cool. Key and Peele really do stand out in this movie. They're the best thing about it. But first and foremost, I watch movies like this for the animation. I love getting lost in these twisted worlds. This movie pulled that off really well. I love the art and camera work and lighting and the design of everything. The score is great. Just sometimes the social commentary seemed a bit preachy to me. And the writing wasn't great all the time. I think I'll say I like this movie about as much as Corpse Bride and Paranorman. It might not end up being one of my favorite movies of all time, but still really enjoyable, and of course I'll watch it again. Got myself a new Halloween tradition movie, that's always great. And stick around during the credits, because the credits are always great in stop motion movies. They always show a little behind the scenes action. I always love seeing that, so do that. So what is your favorite stop motion animated movie of all time? I might have asked that before, but chalk it up to new subscribers, so whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm heading to a Halloween party tonight. I hope all of you are having a great spooky season so far. Peace!